Welcome to this coaching webinar. I'm John Mason, and I'm really glad that you've taken some time out of your busy schedule to join me. I think you're going to find this webinar extremely relevant and maybe very timely for your life today. Even if you can't watch this webinar all in one setting, I encourage you to come back and watch a little more. I do encourage you also to take notes. In this webinar today, we're looking at how to confidently turn stress into success. And I can just hear friends and relatives and clients asking me, why in the world would you do a webinar on turning stress into success? Well, let me give you a little backstory here. Yes, I have experienced a lot of stress in my life beginning from birth. I spent the first year of my life in an oxygen tent. I was sick many times a year until I was much older when I started to become more well. I've experienced the stress of going to 4 different universities, getting my master's degree, having children, worried about my children, as I'm sure many of you can relate. But I've also had the stress of building my own business pretty much from scratch. I also have a history of 32 years as a psychotherapist and 15 years as a life coach. I've literally worked with thousands of clients. And when you work with thousands of clients, believe me, you start to see patterns. So when you look at the number one reason that people go into counseling, the number one reason why people seek life coaches, there are reasons why. People go to counselors usually because they have anxiety, depression, problematic relationships. It's pretty rare, at least in my experience, to encounter people with like severe mental illnesses. Not that they don't go to counselors, but they usually go to more psych hospitals. Also with the coaching clients, when they come in, there's a pattern. Pretty much every one of them are dealing with stress. And the pattern that I was able to notice was the way they were dealing with stress wasn't working. It was backfiring on them. I gradually taught thousands of clients over the years the fundamentals of managing stress, fundamental mindset, skills, strategies that work. And over the years, I've learned more and more, and I've learned how to become even more efficient. When I was in my 20s, I saw a psychologist in California who taught me how to deal with stress, and I want to teach that to you. I've taught this to thousands of clients, and after a while, all I do is repeat myself one client at a time. And many years ago, I thought, I have got to turn this either into a book or into a course so that many people can take advantage of this all at once, rather than me having to repeat myself over and over and over. So when it really boils down to it, it's many years of lots of experience learning that stress is a really big problem for a lot of people. In fact, stress is an epidemic problem in today's world, and it has been for many decades. It doesn't seem to be getting better. Maybe you're one of those people who said, oh, stress is not a big problem for me. Maybe you're a trust fund baby. Maybe you find life really easy. But for the rest of us, stress is a big problem, and it gets in the way of even the most basic success in life. And I don't just mean making money or having a really successful business. I mean everyday life. It gets in the way of relationships. It gets in the way of being able to sleep at night. We need sleep to be at our best. One of my passions is to help you be at your best performance in life, not just personally, not just in your business, but also in your relationships. It's critically important. Let's take a look at a few statistics here. Facts from the last couple of years, and probably even a little farther back than that. According to the American Psychological Association, 58% of Americans report that work is a significant source of their stress. They also report that as many as 1 out of 5, 20% of people, claim that technology is a major source of their stress. 43% of Americans call themselves constant checkers of their media, their cell phones, their computers, and so forth. Perhaps you've heard, as I have, that the amount of screen time that people have on their phones and iPads and computers has been directly linked to increased depression. It's also been linked to increased incidence of ADD and ADHD, believe it or not. Here's some more facts. According to ComPsych in 2016, stress from work breaks down to workload, people issues, work-life balance, and job security. The biggest stressor being workload and people issues. Work-life balance, only 20%. I'm actually surprised by that. I would think it would be a lot higher. People are not as worried about job security nowadays because they tend to hop from one job to another. It's not like 50 years ago where they stayed at the same job for 20 or 30 years. But they're not able to handle the workload, and I would bet that technology is playing a role in that. Here's some more facts. Workers who have gone through a recent organizational change are 4 times more likely to report having physical health symptoms at work. And if you watch the news, you read the paper, you look online, you're going to see a lot of these big organizations are going through organizational change, sometimes every 6 to 12 months. Back in the old days, again, that was extremely rare. Millennials are reporting more depression and anxiety at work than any other generation before them. I'm not exactly sure why, but it's more than likely that they're not being taught skills of focus and resiliency, and again, they're probably distracted by the media. Occupational stress costs the U.S. employers about $300 billion annually in their employment insurance due to absenteeism, illness, and loss of productivity. Why would they be absentee? They're sick. They're not. Compare that to companies in the top 100 companies of the FTSE, the FTSE. The top companies that put a premium on employee engagement and well-being programs outperform all of the other 100 companies. Now, these 100 companies are representing probably 90 to 95% of the money on the stock exchange. And they outperform them by 10%. That's showing you something very significant. There are tons of books and videos and programs out there about reducing stress. I am not trying to offer you one more program about reducing stress. However, in this webinar, we are talking a little bit about it, but for a particular reason. It's not about getting rid of stress. And I'll explain more about that later, but if you try to get rid of something, it tends to bounce back like a bungee cord. It's not completely about getting rid of stress. It's about changing the game. It's about mastering the causes of stress and making it your servant. Once you've mastered it, and you don't need to completely master it, you can then use it to upgrade every area of your life, like an alchemist used to do. Do you know what an alchemist is? If you don't, you can look it up. Let's look at an outline of this webinar. First of all, we're going to talk about stress. Then we're going to talk about the problem with most stress reduction teachings today, and a solution I've learned over many years to compensate for that. I want to tell you about the stress performance curve, which I think is a game changer, good stress versus bad stress. I want to tell you about harnessing stress to create an improved performance in your life in any area that you want, or all areas, the keys to leveraging stress, and what the mini course is all about, as well as some free bonuses I would like for you to take a look at the end of this webinar. Let's start by taking a look at the first part about stress. And I'm going to give you a little more personal history. Back in my early college days, I had already been to a couple of universities, but I decided to up my game and really get focused and study psychology in order to become a counselor. And it was a very challenging school, much more rigorous than the schools I'd been to before. I was working a full-time job, going to school full-time, I was married. Everything is actually pretty good, but I found that I was scheduling my day almost every 15 minutes from about 5 or 6 a.m. until 11 p.m. at least 5 or 6 days a week. And it took a toll on me. Now, keep in mind, at this time, I really had never really heard much about stress or stress management. Never heard of it, never read about it. But one evening, this is dating me, it was in the early 80s, and I went over to turn the channel on the television set, and I thought I got a little shock. So I kind of watched some TV, touched the TV again, got another shock. I checked it for shorts, there was nothing there. Eventually I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep for 3 days. I was wide awake and feeling anxious. So I went to my doctor, and he said, "You have situational stress." Never heard of that before. He put me on a brand new drug at the time called Xanax. Well, that helped for about 4 hours at a time. But then I saw a psychologist on campus who had been a psychologist for about 30 years and knew her stuff. She knew exactly what to do with this. So she taught me some breathing skills, some time management skills. She taught me a skill that I would like to teach you one day, progressive relaxation. And she said, if you practice this 2 to 3 times a day, within 2 weeks, all you'll have to do is think the word relax, and you'll relax. So I took her up on it. I practiced it for about 4 times a day, a little over 2 weeks. About 2 or 3 weeks later, I was in a situation where a group of people became really agitated and violent. It was not people I knew, but I decided to apply what she told me, and I did. I thought the word relax, and sure enough, I did. I relaxed. I got down on my hands and knees, crawled out between their legs, got out of the group, and took off. Within 6 to 9 months, I was able to accomplish 2 to 3 times more in a day than I ever had in my entire life, with a fraction of the stress. That's when I knew this was something huge, and I've taught many, many people these skills since then, and those who have taken me up on it and used it as I did have seen huge changes. I told my psychologist that what I did and what happened, and she grinned really big, and she said, "John, I've taught that to over 300 people, and you're one of only 10 people who actually did what I taught you to do," and all of them described the same results. If you've been able to study history without looking at revisionist history, you know that during World War II, when Germans were bombing London with the V rockets, the British were under a tremendous amount of stress. They were a tiny island with the threat of being completely taken over very quickly. They were being bombed regularly with the German V rockets, and the problem was that those V rockets could not be aimed. They could be generally sent in a particular direction, but nobody, including the Germans, really knew where they were going to land, and that added to the fear of the British. During that time, they came up with a saying, "Keep calm and carry on." You might have seen this on shirts, on posters, on bumper stickers. They had to learn how to respond to stress proactively. Too much stress for too long can cause very serious problems. You don't have to look very far online to find all of the different negative effects of stress, and perhaps you, like me, have experienced that. It's the number one reason why people go to counselors, take pharmaceuticals and recreational drugs, and I have found it's one of the number one issues that people are facing when they go to coaching, and they try to find, and they're trying to get past their blocks to success. And they're not even sometimes consciously aware of how much stress is taking a toll on them. Let's take a look at how stress affects various parts of us. In our body, the symptoms we might get are headaches, frequent infections, muscular tension, fatigue, skin irritations, breathlessness. Mentally, and these are just a small list. We could probably fill a whole book with lists with symptoms. Worry, muddled thinking, difficulty concentrating, nightmares, indecision, negativity, hasty decisions, and this is just mild to moderate stress. Behavior, you might be accident prone, over or undereat, lose your sex drive, increase your drinking, insomnia, restlessness, increase smoking. Emotionally, lack of confidence, irritability, grumpiness, depression, anger, anxiousness, apprehensiveness. That is just to mention a few. Do you see yourself anywhere there? More specifically, looking at the effects of your body, because one of the points that I think is important for you to understand is that, for example, negative emotions and stress will show up in body symptoms before consciously you're ever aware that it's happening in your mind or happening in your life. You'll see symptoms first. Mind, mood problems such as anger, depression, irritability, low energy, concentration problems, sleep problems, headaches, anxiety, and panic. Heart, increased blood pressure, increased heart rate, increased cholesterol. When you're stressed, your body produces more cortisol, which can affect your heart. Increased heart attack risk. In your immune system becomes challenged. Your stomach might have cramps, increased reflux and nausea. Sexually, low libido, low sperm count for men, increased menstrual pain for women. Joints, inflammation increases with stress, and it's inflammation that plays the primary role in aches and pains in your joints and your muscles. Your bones can actually reduce their bone density as a result of stress. This is pretty serious stuff. For the sake of our discussion today in this webinar, let's assume that success means it's when you are at your best performance. Would you agree with that definition? If you don't, I would love it if you emailed me and let me know that you don't agree with that. But more or less, yes, we could come up with a dictionary definition, but when you're at your best performance, that's success. When your performance is poor, we could say you're not enjoying the success that you would prefer to enjoy. The relationship between your success and your performance has actually been plotted on a curve called the stress performance curve. Here is what it looks like. I'll tell you a little more about this in a few minutes, but on the left side we have a vertical axis measuring performance. On the bottom we have a horizontal axis measuring stress, and then this is the plot of the curve. The actual stress performance curve looks a little different, but for most sakes and discussions, most people use this curve here. There are a lot of information and resources out there for managing stress. There have been for years. That's only one small portion of what this webinar is about. Although those programs and those materials out there are good, and I would recommend them to anybody because they all work, I think I have a better solution for you. It's called Turn Stress into Success mini course. Now, again, this course is putting out there what I've been teaching people for decades. It's putting it all into one course that you can go to again and again. It's based on my recent book called Turning Pink Elephants into White Tigers, 5 Simple Steps to Create a Life Worth Living from the Inside Out. I wrote this book, again, as a culmination of all of my years of experience, and I condensed it into the simplest terms and principles I could possibly condense it into. I threw everything, including the kitchen sink, in here, kept it as simple as possible. It's what I've been telling people over and over. It's the principles I live by every single day. It's what I know works. And I've kind of squeezed out a portion that has to do with stress and success into this course. The Alchemy Secret. The idea here is, back in the old days, an alchemist was a type of pseudoscientist who would try to turn one piece of material into something else. Usually they were spending all their time trying to turn lead into gold. They were trying to turn everything into gold. They weren't trying to get rid of the lead. They weren't trying to get rid of the other substance. They were trying to transform it into something. This happens every day. Let me summarize the first chapter here, and there are ways that you can go find a free copy of the first chapter if you want. You can go to my website, and I have links there. Basically, if I say don't think about pink elephants, what happens? Well, you think about pink elephants. If you really, really, really don't want to think about pink elephants and you try really hard to not think about them, you get more pink elephants. What happens if you try to not have anxiety? Well, you focus on it more and you get more of it. What if you don't want to be depressed? Well, you focus on not having the depression. If you just try to get rid of the anxiety or the depression, you create a vacuum. Your brain doesn't like a vacuum. Your unconscious mind doesn't like a vacuum. It likes something there to focus on. So if you don't want to have anxiety, you ask yourself, what would I rather think about? Well, if I don't want to think about pink elephants, I'd love to think about white tigers with blue eyes. They're very compelling. They're very engaging. If I tell my brain, think about white tigers with blue eyes over and over, within about 1 minute, I have just transformed pink elephants into white tigers with blue eyes. And pink elephants are a thing of the past. And I can think about the white tigers all day. If I don't want to think about anxiety, what can I do? Well, what would I rather think about? What about being calm or peaceful? If I tell myself repeatedly to feel calm and feel peaceful within a few seconds to a couple of minutes, that's exactly how I'm feeling. It works. In the book, I go into a lot of detail about how that works, and I also help you troubleshoot in case you have any problems or you come up with anything that's not working just quite right for you. So in a sense, what you're doing with your mind is you're harnessing the way your mind is already designed instead of trying to work against it. If you try to just get rid of anxiety or depression or stress, if you just try to get rid of it, you create a vacuum, and your mind is not designed to work that way. It doesn't like a vacuum. Your mind is designed based on a principle called teleology to drift in the direction that your mind is thinking. If you were to try to get rid of a wave in the ocean, how successful do you think you would be? Do surfers try to get rid of waves? No. Do they try to annihilate waves? No. Do they try to go to battle with waves and make them calm? No. They harness the significant power of a wave to have fun. They can use the power of the wave with some basic skill and principles that take some practice, but they can use that wave to travel sometimes, literally I've heard of miles, but at the very least, from out to shore to end to shore. Sometimes they look like it's effortless because they've been doing it for so long, but we want to do the same thing with your mind and your body and the universe is created. That will turn your stress into success by using the principles of your mind and the universe to create a completely different result, using a fraction of the stress to create a much bigger result per unit of time. Again, I can just hear my friends and relatives and clients saying, well, why would I want to take a course? I could just go read the book. Yes, you could. You could go just read the book if you want to. There's a term that people are using nowadays for self-help books. They call them shelf-help books. Why do they call them shelf-help books? Well, is it because there's something wrong with the books? No, the truth is most self-help books have really good, solid, authentic material that really works. The material in this book really works, but it's just a tiny fraction of people who will go read a book and put it into practice. I probably only met 2 or 3 of those people in my entire life who do that. The reality is that most people benefit from a course, something that involves instruction, coaching, and action that results in transformation. It's not that you couldn't read the book and get a lot of benefit from it. You probably could. But if you're like the other 95% of the population, you probably need something that's going to move you into action. This course contains more detailed content, this mini course that I'm talking about, than what's in the book. So I add a lot of content. Specifically, it's related to helping you master and use stress to your benefit. The course is a coached process which involves being challenged with some tough, soul-searching, life-transforming questions. The course is about taking action, customizing it to your unique situation. It's about a process and a transformation, not just content. You really can't get that from the book. The course is about your own personal transformation, so I am wanting this customized to you. Here's what we'll cover in the course. First, we're going to take a close look at the stress performance curve. There's a whole lot I can say about this. It could take a whole lot longer than I have in this webinar. I'm also going to tell you about the stress response. That is something that's happening mentally and physiologically, but it is something that with the right tools you can master. I'm going to tell you about the motivational response because the same thing that causes toxic stress can be used as a form of motivation to get you to your optimal level of performance. Good stress versus bad stress. Good stress, some people call it eustress, E-U-S-T-R-E-S-S, versus bad stress, we also call distress. Did you know that winning the lottery, let's say $10 million from the lottery, is just as stressful as being in a car accident? And if you don't know how to handle being in a car accident, you might have a hard time handling winning the lottery. One of the things we're going to go into some detail in the course is how to leverage stress. So what do I mean by leverage? Well, if you've ever taken a board, laid it on a rock, and used it to move a boulder or something heavy, or used a small, thin log, laid it on a medium-sized log to leverage a big log, that's leverage. Every time you turn a doorknob, you're using leverage. When you use a hammer, you're using leverage. You're using a small amount of energy to create a bigger result. You have probably used leverage if you've ever bought a house or a car because you've leveraged other people's money to buy that house. You're using a small amount of energy to create a huge result using a fraction of the stress that you would use if you didn't use leverage. You can use leverage to turn stress into success, and we will define success and stress and how to use that leverage in the course. You will learn how to turn anxiety into accomplishment. You can harness that anxiety into accomplishment and ascension. You can turn depression into delight, fear into mountain-moving faith. Yes, it is possible. If you've experienced these things before, you might find it hard to believe because the fear, depression, and anxiety seem so huge. You can turn triggers into triumphs. A trigger is a type of a program. Anything that can be programmed can be reprogrammed if you think about your mind as a computer. You can turn tight schedules into loose schedules, resistance into rest. Resistance is one of the biggest causes of stress, and all of us have little gremlins inside that try to push against even the best success. These are the kinds of things we're going to be covering in that course. There are several fundamental keys that are critically important to learn in order to leverage stress. The first key is your mindset. Mindset is the fundamental key to everything. If your mindset is off, it doesn't matter what other key you use, it probably won't work. I want you to understand clearly what goes into a success mindset. Again, if you read the book, you'll see it clearly described, but I want to make sure it works for you and it's customized to you. There are specific skills, what I call tools, that can be used to leverage stress. There are certain principles that, again, if you have the mindset and the skills but you don't have the principles, nothing will work. The principles are actually very few. There's only about 2 or 3 key principles, but there are a lot of different skills. But then nothing happens without action. When you take specific action based on those principles and skills in the mindset, things begin to happen. This course is about content. Yes, I've got content, and you could see the content in those thousands of other courses and books. Some of it might be the same as what they have, some of it might be different, but it's not just about content. It's about action, actually moving forward, putting into practice, and transforming any area or every area of your life that you would like. It's to be customized to you. There are basically four steps in this course. Question your state, learn the key principles and skills, create a clear customized action plan, and get moving. Questioning your state is basically assessing where are you at now, what's working, what's not working. Learn those key principles and skills, put it into practice, or create a clear plan to put it into practice, and then put it into practice. I have some bonuses for you that I would like to offer that I think will make this course worth far more than you would ever imagine paying for it. When you purchase this course, you'll receive one free coaching clarity call with me. That's a 1-hour call. My fee is $120 an hour, so you're getting a $120 an hour value just for the cost of this course. You'll have access to the White Tiger Facebook group where you can receive support, lifetime access to the course and all future updates, because I will be adding content and information to this course over time. It's not just a course that sits there on the shelf and clicks dust. This is a dynamic course. I am creating this course because I think it's so critically important to people today, and especially younger people as they grow up without these skills, because they're not being taught in our schools, at least anymore. I learned some of these skills in school, by the way. You'll get a $100 discount on the Deeper Path. It's a more advanced course. It goes deeper. If you really want to do a total upgrade on your life from the ground up, a total makeover, the Deeper Path is the place to start. It's where you can dig into your clarifying your purpose, your vision for the future, and creating a plan that is just absolutely second to none. A simple manual to follow about how to improve your memory. I'm going to be doing a special report on that for you. And a 100% 30-day money-back guarantee. From the time the course starts, for 30 days, if you say, I don't like this, I don't want to do this anymore, and you want your money back, no questions asked, you get your money back. Here's how you start getting revenge on the stress in your life and move into your new home on Mount Everest. Mount Everest is symbolic for the peak of where you want to be in life. It can become your new home sweet home. Below this video on this page is a button. When you push the button, you'll be given an opportunity to enroll in the course. It's up to you. But first, a few facts. This is a $97 course, but for the first 20 people, especially those who enroll before the course is ready to go, who are serious about doing something effective to reduce their stress and increase their performance and live in their zone, the price is only $47. You're getting the course. Please don't overthink this. A $97 retail value, one free coaching clarity call with me, $120 value. You're getting access to the White Tiger Facebook group, a lot of tactical value, lifetime access to the course and all future updates, a $100 discount on the Deeper Path course. It's more advanced, takes you into a deep dive for at least 3 months into your passion, purpose, and a detailed GPS called an opus for being more decisive and charting a clear course to living your purpose every day. A simple to follow manual for improving your memory and a 100% 30-day money-back guarantee. I personally can't think of anything that you'd have to lose, but I can think of a lot of gain you could have in transforming any area of your life. I know from experience those who have applied what I teach in this course have been amazed at how much change they've seen per unit of time in their life. I appreciate you taking some time to join me. I hope you'll push that button, but if you don't and you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Now, do you push the button or do you do what you've always done? If you do what you've always done, you get what you always got. Keep calm and claim your zone.